Well, welcome to another little chat with Tim. A couple months ago, somebody asked me at a staff meeting if I had done any looking into or knew of any research being done around sleep apnea and whether there was a connection to it and complex trauma. And I said, honestly, I don't know, but I would be interested to look into it. And so I did. And I'm going to just share with you today what I've found out. And the bottom line is there's just a growing body of research that's being done that's showing a connection between complex trauma and sleep apnea. And I just find that quite fascinating. I'm not surprised, but it's really good to see the amount of research that's being done. So a couple of things up front. I'm going to give you, as I talk, the clinical, the different research papers that I've referred to. So you'll see the links there, and then I'm going to put it into layman's terms. But secondly, the danger when I do these talks always is that people will jump to the conclusion that Tim is saying that all sleep apnea is because of trauma. And they just, that black or white, all or nothing thinking. And I want to be very clear that I'm not saying that. I think what the research is showing is that some sleep apnea, not necessarily all, but some sleep apnea, there is a definite link to complex trauma. And I think that's just very significant for people to be aware of. And so kind of the summary up front for you is that what we know about complex trauma is it affects your brain, it affects your body, it puts the person in survival mode, so it affects your whole autonomic nervous system. All three of those now can affect your sleep and then therefore cause sleep apnea. And so we've done a talk on how it affects your normal sleep rhythms. It affects your body's ability to relax and to go into a deep sleep. And then we're going to look at some other factors as well when it comes to sleep apnea. So the first one, kind of the technical, is that complex trauma results in neuroendocrine and autonomic dysregulation. And so it's bottom line is complex trauma in childhood is linked to altering your HPA axis function, which is basically related to your stress system. So I've listed some of the articles there that you can follow up on if you like. But there's basically two things that come out of this. Number one is that trauma teaches the body, complex trauma, when a child is constantly in danger, it trains the body to stay on high alert. So a child grows up in fear. And so that can be abuse and neglect or just constant stress that they can't resolve. So it's overwhelming, it's too much. And so their body learns that the world is not safe. So even when they go out into safety, the body still has learned from its own experience, no, we're not safe. We got to stay on high alert. So their whole nervous system stays in fight, flight, or freeze mode, even when there's no danger. Because the years of living in danger have trained it to do that. And so the body stays on guard, walking on eggshells, tense, jumpy. It's not able to go to that fully relaxed state in the parasympathetic nervous system because it's constantly been in the sympathetic nervous system. So that can result in sleep issues. Another piece to this one is that the stress system gets stuck on. So in danger, in the sympathetic nervous system, the brain releases cortisol, which then releases adrenaline to give you the energy to fight or flight. So you've got these chemicals, these hormones being released in the brain, in the body, but the child's not able to get to safety, which would then cause the cortisol to turn off and the adrenaline to stop, and it would be resolved. It's cortisol and adrenaline happening all the time in the body, and the body's not made for that. And it begins to affect the brain, the heart, how your breathing works, your immune system, your autonomic nervous system. All of that gets stuck on. And so you still have cortisol and adrenaline being pumped into the body. And that affects sleep. That affects your muscles, the tension of your muscles, tightening and relaxing of muscles. And so that can lead to sleep apnea. There's a second thing that the technical is just that when you got this cortisol in the body all the time, it results in systemic inflammation in the body. So again, I put the articles there, and that systemic inflammation can result in sleep apnea. But then there's the third piece, and that's indirect behavioral aspects. So we know that a child in trauma where they can't resolve pain and hurt, they can't get their needs met, so they're emotionally in a painful, negative place. So as a result of that, they turn to other things to try to make them feel better, to try to escape their pain. So that could be drugs or alcohol, that could be food, that could be sex. It leads to all kinds of addictive type process addictions or chemical addictions, which then leads to potentially, if it's food, over obesity, but it also leads to chronic depression, chronic anxiety issues that they can't resolve. So all of those extra kind of ripple effects that come out of complex trauma then can affect sleep. So people that cope through food and gain weight, through alcohol, through smoking, all of those increase your possibility of sleep apnea. Weight gain, especially around the neck, increases your chances of sleep apnea. Alcohol and sedatives cause the muscles in your throat to relax, especially if you do it before bedtime, and that increases the chances of sleep apnea. So, fourth thing, it's called sleep fragmentation and arousal threshold. So what happens because of complex trauma is that sleep isn't just interrupted by being on high alert all the time. It also can be interrupted because of nightmares, because of flashbacks, and that fragments your sleep all the time. And that can cause sleep apnea. So the brain's patterns get disrupted, to say this in kind of layman's language. So light restless sleep, frequent awakenings, difficulty getting restorative sleep or deep sleep. And so all of that constant disruption of sleep can either mask or worsen sleep apnea symptoms. So some people don't even realize that their breathing is stopping because they're half awake most of the night. They're having flashbacks. All kinds of other things are happening because of the trauma. And so they just think they have sleep issues and don't even realize that sleep apnea is there. So another way to say all of this is what is so important to understand about complex trauma is that the body remembers what the brain sometimes forgets, the memory sometimes forgets. And so even if a person doesn't consciously think about trauma, therefore they tend to think that the trauma doesn't affect them or that it's past, what they don't realize is that the trauma was stored in the body. The body still remembers. The body still has habits about how it breathes, about how it responds. It has nightmares. It has panic attacks. It has heart that begins racing all of a sudden due to anxiety issues. All of those things the body still remembers, even though the person doesn't think about the trauma at all. And all of those body reactions can result in sleep apnea issues. So, bottom line, research is showing that sleep apnea, there is a strong connection in many cases to complex trauma. So, what do you do about it? Well, you can look into it more and find out there's tons of research that is coming out. But two things that I would say to you. Number one, do get medical help because there are the symptoms, the stuff that sleep apnea makes you have to deal with that you just need medical help to be able to deal with it. But get help for your trauma. And if you begin getting help for your trauma, you might begin to experience a change in how you sleep. It might not happen right away. It's not going to happen magically necessarily, but you might see a gradual change. So really work at it from two levels, from the medical and from the trauma therapy level.